The next utilitarian command I'd like to talk about are the snaps. Snaps are one of the most useful utilitarian commands. These can be found at the bottom right of your CAD window. So in this version of CAD 2015, this button right here is my snaps. And I can tell that I have them on because the button is colored in. If I don't have them on, it'll turn white like that. So depending upon the version of Civil 3D you're running, it may be blue, it may be red, or maybe some other color. And like I said, with every release of Civil 3D, they always change the color scheme of the interface, so who knows what color it could be. So anyways, these are found down here on this bar. If you don't see it, you may need to click on this thing here and just simply turn them on. So I have snap mode checked in up here, and there may be some other things that I need to turn on, but right now that's what I have on. And I can also tell what kind of snaps I have on. So right now I can either right click on this part of the button, and I can see that I have endpoint, center, intersection, and extension turned on. And I can kind of see what it does. So endpoint is going to snap to these endpoints. Midpoint is going to snap to the center of a line. Center is going to snap to the center of a circle. And of course, node is either going to grab a point or some other node. Quadrant is going to grab certain parts of a circle, usually the outer edge. Intersection is where two lines intersect or two circles intersect. Extension is actually something that when you, like for example, I'm going to click on polyline. When I click, if you notice, there's little dashed lines. So let's say that maybe I want to try to get to this one. You'll see that there's extensions that come out. That 129 is an extension. It tries to take a guess at what you want. Some people like that, some people don't like that. So it just really depends. Let me try to get another extension. So it's that green line that's running across. So right clicking back here again, and we have insertion, we have perpendicular, tangent, nearest, apparent intersection, and parallel. So by default I have endpoint, center, intersection, and extension turned on. Another way to get to these other than right clicking on this button is I can left click on the drop down arrow next to it, and I can go to Object Snap Settings, and I have this box here where I can click things on or off. So I'm going to click cancel to that. So let us play around with snaps and see what they actually do. So I'm going to do the polyline command. Well, before I do that, let me go back in here and let me go to my Object Snap Settings. I'm going to just turn everything off except for this endpoint. Now I'm going to go over here to polyline. I'm going to click somewhere in space, and I want to maybe snap to this endpoint. And notice if I move down this line, I'm not going to snap anywhere else, only to endpoints. Pretty useful. So if I click here, and by snapping to that endpoint, I know that when I clicked to make the second vertex, it is exactly at the very end of this line. So if I zoom in as far as I can go, it is always going to be touching that line. So that's one of the reasons why we use snap, to make sure that our geometry is clean. We don't want to take a guess. So over here, these are two lines that I drew earlier, and I did not use the snap. So if we look at it, if we look at this and we look at this, you really can't see a difference. Now if we zoom all the way in on this one, we can begin to see why we would want to use snap. So even if you zoom all the way in and it looks like the line is touching, it's really not touching until you use snap. So there's lots of reasons why somebody would not want to have snap on. Obviously, having snap on is going to be important because it'll make sure that you don't make a mistake like this. So why would somebody want to turn snaps off? Well, one example is when you're sketching contours. You want to make sure that you're not snapping to neighboring contours, because when you're drawing in contours, you don't want there to be a vertical drop. And if you have contours, for example, contour with elevation 100 snapping to contour elevation 101, which is snapping to 103, 104, etc., you can imagine there's going to be a vertical drop there. And then when you go to calculate slope, you're going to have a little divide by zero error. You'll get all kinds of weird errors that will get generated in Civil 3D. So you want to avoid that sort of thing from happening. So one thing that we usually do when we sketch contours is we tend to turn the snap off. But we have to be careful because let's just say this is a contour line and we want to make sure that it's going to snap to this other end here. Now, I can try to eyeball it and get it as close as I can, but if I zoom in, you'll see that you'll never ever touch the end of that without snaps on. So sometimes it can be kind of a pain to go down here, turn it on, turn it off, turn it on. So one thing that you can do is while you're in the middle of an operation is you can press the shift and right click and turn maybe endpoint on so that you can snap. And you can see that snaps are still off, and what I did by pressing the shift and the right click was for this command only to have endpoint on. So I'm going to move this off again, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, but now I'm going to do it using a different way. So clicking this again, I want to move it and try to get to this endpoint, and instead of shift and right clicking, I'm just going to type in endpoint or type in end and press enter, and my endpoint snaps are turned on temporarily so that I can snap. So this works for most of the commands. So let's just say maybe I have a circle over here and I want this to snap to the center of this circle, so I can type in center, and I may have to hover along the edge here so it'll get that center, and for this command only I have the snaps for center. So as you can imagine, using the shift right click or just typing in whatever the keyboard shortcut is for these different snaps can be pretty useful in allowing you just temporarily to have the snaps turned on so that you don't create dirty line work.